ceremony begins. The stars shimmered cold and bright beyond the curved glass of the observation deck. Elias Vance tugged at the collar of his diplomat's uniform, more out of nerves than discomfort. This was supposed to be routine formality, a symbolic ceremony to finalize the first cultural treaty between Earth and the Zyrothia Empire. No politics, no danger, just light some candles, bow, smile, and go home. Less. That's what Earth Command had told him. The Zyrothi Ritual Hall was cavernous, an obsidian dome set in the heart of their orbital embassy station. Suspended between Earth and the dead moon of Arakai, it pulsed with low ambient light, breathing like a living thing. Alien figures in ceremonial robes stood in concentric circles, their pale blue skin glowing faintly under the bioluminescent ceiling. Elias stepped into the center of the ring, guided by two silent Zyrothi attendants. His boots echoed lightly against the polished black floor. At the heart of the circle stood a raised stone platform. Upon it, a tall figure waited, cloaked in layers of iridescent fabric, her face hidden behind a ceremonial mask of silver and dark crystal. She was still almost statuesque. Elias had been briefed. This was the consort vessel, a title passed down ceremonially. She would perform the rites, mark the alliance, and nothing more. He climbed the steps slowly. Elias Vance of Earth, came a deep voice through translation implants. The Grand Speaker, a genderless entity that represented the Zarathi Council, spoke from the edge of the chamber. "Do you come in peace and binding will?" "I do," Elias replied firmly, repeating the scripted lines, "in peace, and with intent to honor this bond." The crowd raised one hand in unison, a gesture of approval. The consort vessel descended the final step and stood face to face with Elias. Though she was shorter, her presence radiated something ancient, commanding. She raised her hand, palm out. Elias mirrored her, and as their palms touched skin to skin, something ignited. A thin arc of white-blue energy leapt between them. The room pulsed. Symbols erupted across Ilias's forearm, glowing alien script, alive and crawling across his skin. He gasped and staggered back, his heart racing. The marking seared into his mind, not painful, but final, like the brand of a decision made without his consent. The crowd bowed, every one of them. What the hell is this?" Ilias barked. Looking around, the consort finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, melodic, yet edged with authority. "The binding is sealed." "I thought this was symbolic." Elias shouted. "I didn't agree to anything permanent." "You agreed," the Grand Speaker corrected. "With touch and will. You accepted the consort's claim. You are now ... bonded." "To what?" "To her," the speaker said plainly. "The consort has chosen you as mate." Elias took a step back, heat rising in his face. "Wait, what?" There was a stunned silence, broken only by the soft hum of the chamber. The consort lowered her mask and the entire course of Elias's life changed. In an instant, she was beautiful not by human standards, but undeniably striking. Her skin shimmered like liquid starlight, her eyes a deep indigo with no whites. Only endless galaxies swirling behind her gaze. But more than her appearance, there was something else. He'd seen her before, in dreams. For years, shadows and fragments of this face had haunted him as a child. Impossible memories that made no sense until now. "You," he whispered. "How is this possible?" She said only, "I chose you long before today." Elias was confined to a private chamber after the ceremony, an honor suite, they called it. More like a soft prison. No windows, no answers. He paced, running his hand along the still glowing script on his forearm. It had cooled, but the marks remained like ink sunk deep beneath the skin. A chime echoed. "Come in," he muttered. The door dissolved with a hiss. The consort Solari, as he would soon learn, entered alone, without her ceremonial garb. She wore a fitted wrap of layered fabric and minimal jewelry. Her eyes locked with his immediately. "You tricked me," he said. Not a question. She tilted her head slightly. "You were told the ritual was a formality. That was a lie your people gave you. I merely followed custom. You touched me. You bound me." "Yes, I did." She stepped closer. "I have my reasons. You mind telling me what they are?" Her gaze dropped for the first time. She walked to a low table and poured a silver liquid into a transparent bowl. It shimmered with internal light. "I saw you in the stream before you saw me in your dreams," she said. "Stream, temporal resonance, a sacred pool. I saw the fragment. You were in it." It was always going to be you. Elias swallowed hard. That doesn't mean you get to hijack my life. She didn't react. I didn't do this lightly, Elias Vance. I understand what I've taken from you. I also know what I've given. You've given me confusion and a diplomatic crisis. Salary looked at him, really looked. No, I've given you purpose. The next hours blurred. Elias contacted Earth Command, but the signal was scrambled. The response distorted. It felt deliberate. He sent multiple transmissions, each more urgent. No reply. Guards patrolled the corridor outside. He wasn't technically a prisoner, but he wasn't free either. Later, a Zyrathi official delivered a tablet containing preparation documents, guidelines for cross-species bonding, etiquette, even cohabitation rituals. Elias hurled the tablet against the wall. This wasn't diplomacy. This was abduction wrapped in ancient pageantry. Night fell, if you could call it night, in a space station that simulated time. Elias sat in darkness, head in his hands, when a sound pulled his attention. A hum. Not from outside, from inside his own mind. He closed his eyes and saw her, Salari, standing on a cliff of glowing stone beneath a twin-moon sky. She looked out at something distant, alone, even in her grandeur. Then she turned, whispered something. He snapped awake, heart pounding. What the hell is happening to me? You're not going home. The walls of the chamber no longer felt like sleek alien architecture to Elias Vance. They felt like a coffin. Every attempt to contact Earth had failed. Every appeal to leave the station had been politely declined. He wasn't shackled, but his footsteps were tracked. His requests were reviewed. Even the food he was brought, exquisite, glowing, and oddly warm, felt like bait in a velvet trap. He was not a guest. He was not an ambassador. He was a husband. Apparently, to an alien woman who claimed to have seen him in some kind of psychic vision, and Earth Command. Silent Salary came again. This time, she didn't wear robes or ceremony. Her outfit was simple close-fitting cloth around her shoulders, arms bare, the markings on her own skin flickering faintly in shades of silver and violet. They almost looked like tattoos, but they pulsed when she was near him. I brought you something, she said, stepping into the room with slow, careful movements. Elias didn't stand. He sat at the edge of the platform bed, jaw clenched. Freedom. She tilted her head slightly. No. Perspective. She handed him a flat crystal slab. As soon as his hand touched it, images flickered into his mind. Not visuals, experiences. A memory, but one that wasn't his. He saw a younger Salari kneeling in front of a glowing pool of blue liquid, the temporal stream she had mentioned. Her voice chanted something in Zarothia. The pool shimmered down, an image appeared. His face. He jerked back from the crystal like it had burned him. What the hell is this? A record, she said calmly. I wanted you to know I'm not lying. I saw you long before I ever met you. You chose me based on a vision. I chose you because the vision confirmed what I already suspected, she said softly, that our bond is necessary. Elias stood, voice rising. Necessary. For what? Galactic politics. A bloodline. What do I look like to use a prophecy plaything? Her gaze didn't waver. You look like someone who's asking the wrong questions. Later that night, Elias paced the room again. The glow of the marking on his forearm had dimmed, but it pulsed softly when he touched it. He could almost feel emotions bleeding through it, not his. Salary's a thought crossed his mind, and it chilled him. What if we're linked now? What if this bond goes both ways? He turned to the mirror and stared at his own reflection, trying to find something human in a situation that no longer was. And then the door opened again. This time, not Salary, a Zyrathi male in formal blue robes. You were summoned, the man said. By who? The consort. She has decided the bonding chamber must be initiated. Elias narrowed his eyes. I don't think so. She does. The bonding chamber was unlike anything he had seen before. It wasn't a bedroom. It was sacred. A circular room filled with floating spheres of light, slow-moving air currents, and soft chimes that hummed from nowhere. The floor was alive, with roots, actual living roots, woven into metal, like nature had colonized technology. Salari stood in the center, barefoot, calm, radiant. This is not a physical chamber, she said. It is an emotional conduit, a place where our minds can touch without barriers. Elias froze. You want me to connect with you? Yes. Why? Because you need to understand what this is, she said, voice almost pleading. And I cannot tell you with words. He hesitated. Every rational instinct screamed at him to run. But a deeper voice, something softer, said, "If there are answers, they're in here." He stepped forward. The moment his foot touched the center ring, the room disappeared. Elias floated. No, they floated. He saw stars whirl around them, oceans, collapsing towers, echoes of language he'd never heard but somehow understood. And then memories. Not his Saelari, single quotes S. A memory of her as a child, weeping beside her father's cold body. A war long past. Being told she was too powerful, too empathically sensitive to rule. Then visions of Earth, human voices, laughing, children, him. Then a memory of her watching Earth from afar, against orders, searching for him. Years of waiting. "I didn't want to bind you," her voice whispered in his mind. "I had to. Because if I didn't, they would have chosen someone else. And the link would have been broken, forever." The chamber vanished. Elias collapsed to his knees, gasping. The vision ended, and they were back in the room. His skin was cold. His mind felt violated and, yet, understood. "You were alone," he said. She nodded. "And you saw me. Why?" Saelari looked up, her voice trembling for the first time. "Because you're not entirely human." The words hit him like a stun blast. "What did you just say?" "You carry fragments of a signal," she said. "One your scientists discovered in an alien ruin 23 years ago. They thought it was inert. But it wasn't. It bound to your DNA. Only a few were exposed. You were one." Elias shook his head. "No, that's impossible. That would mean, it means you've always been partially linked to us." See, finished. "And that's why the vision chose you. Why I found you in my dreams." He backed away. "I need air," he said. "I need to think." "There's more," I said. "I need to think." But he didn't get far. As he stepped into the outer corridor, alarms sounded. Lights flashed crimson along the walls. A voice, but panicked, shouted through the speakers. Saelari's expression hardened. "They've found you." Who? She grabbed his arm. "Not my people." The doors sealed behind them, in a hidden chamber beneath the ceremonial wing. They watched the security feed. 3 humanoid figures had entered the docking ring, using hacked clearance codes, armed, armored, in black exosuits. "Not Zarathia." "Those humans?" Elias asked in disbelief. Saelari nodded grimly. "Rogue agents. Earth factions not sanctioned by your official council. They believe you've been compromised. So they came to get me." "No," she said, narrowing her eyes. "They came to extract you, or eliminate you." He stared at her. "What do you mean, eliminate?" "Some believe a bond like ours could threaten Earth's autonomy, that you've been hijacked. If they can't bring you back, they'll destroy the link." Elias's heart pounded. "They think I'm a traitor." "No," Saelari said. "They think you're no longer fully human." The sound of distant blasts echoed through the corridor. They were breaching doors, moving closer, reached for a hidden panel in the wall and removed a small crystal pulsing with white-blue light. "Take this," she said. "If they capture you, it will keep our link from being severed. Hide it. Do not let them destroy it." "What is it?" "The core of our bond. What ties us. If it's shattered, I will forget you. You will forget me." Elias stared at the tiny shard. "This is real, isn't it?" She touched his face. "More real than you know." The dream that wasn't a dream. Elias ran. The polished obsidian floors of the Zarothi vessel blurred beneath his boots as klaxons wailed above. The smooth alien architecture, once exotic, almost sacred, was now a chaotic labyrinth. Behind him, the thudding footfalls of armed humans echoed. They were gaining. He clutched the glowing crystal Saelari had given him. It was small, warm, and pulsing like it had a heartbeat of its own. Like hers, a voice crackled in his earpiece, static, then words. "Elias Vance, stand down, you're compromised. This is a containment retrieval, not Earth Command, private faction, Black Ops." He'd heard whispers of them, TerraSec Initiative, rogue human operatives who didn't trust the Zarathi Alliance or anyone touched by alien influence. They weren't here to rescue him. They were here to erase him. He ducked into a side corridor, nearly colliding with a column of floating lights. The air shimmered thinner here. He knew this area. The memory halls, an ancient part of the station Saelari had once called emotionally sensitive. If they scanned this section improperly, the feedback could fry their brains. Elias moved deeper. The walls began to shift, not physically, mentally. The memory halls didn't just echo. They remembered. Touching them unlocked buried thoughts, For a Xyrathi it was spiritual. For a human, it was overwhelming. The moment Elias leaned against one wall to catch his breath, it activated. A memory knot. His own rushed in. He was standing in a field beneath 3 suns. The sky was violet, the wind soft and sweet. Salary, barefoot and young, was laughing, chasing spectral birds across a crystal riverbank. But he could feel her sadness. Even in joy, something in her chest ached. A voice whispered inside the memory, "No one sees me for who I am, only for what I carry." Then the sky split. War. Explosions. Salari, older now, dressed in ceremonial armor, weeping as she stood alone in a throne room. Elias screamed and fell to his knees. The memory ended. Boots, shouting. The operatives had caught up. He's in. There. Too late. Elias leaped through an arched door that irised open just long enough to admit him. Inside was silence. Starlight streamed in from an artificial dome above. Floating in the center of the chamber was a translucent pillar, its surface shimmering with rotating glyphs. He approached, drawn like a moth to fire, and when his hand touched the surface, everything broke open. His mind shattered into pieces, and reformed in a single breath. He stood in his own memory, now but warped. Twisted. Earth. The year 2117. Age 9. The excavation site in Antarctica. His mother had been part of the research team that unearthed a dormant alien structure beneath the ice, and he remembered. He had wandered away from the tents. He had touched something, a circular object embedded in black stone. It had lit up. Under his fingers he had collapsed, fevered, nightmares for weeks after. Except they weren't nightmares, they were transmissions. The memory faded. Elias staggered back, gasping. The truth crashed over him in waves. He wasn't just a random pick. The artifact from Antarctica had bound him to something or someone across space and time. That was why Salari saw him in her visions. That's why the Xyrathi called him Touched. He'd been entangled with her for decades without knowing it, and all those dreams growing up of stars, of voices in languages he didn't understand, of a blue-skinned girl with sad eyes. They were never dreams, they were her. The door hissed behind him. 3 Terrasec soldiers stormed in, weapons drawn. Elias Vance dropped the artifact. Elias held up the crystal. "This, you don't even know what it is." One stepped forward. "We know it's a weapon, a link to Xyrathi intelligence, and we've been authorized to sever it permanently. You think I've been compromised?" Elias said, voice cracking with disbelief. "You're the ones burning diplomacy to the ground. We're protecting Earth," the leader said flatly. "From contamination." He raised his weapon, but before the shot fired, a shockwave exploded through the room. The lights died. Gravity vanished. The memory pillar in the center of the chamber glowed white-hot, sending arcs of energy into the floor. The Terrasec agents screamed, clutching their heads. Blood trickled from their noses. They weren't trained for psychic resonance. Elias heard a voice in his head. "Solaris, I found you. Don't move." A second later, the ceiling above split apart, and a Xyrathi retrieval pod descended. The doors opened. Solari stood inside, holding out her hand. He didn't hesitate. Elias lunged, diving into the pod as the doors sealed shut. The pod shot away like a bullet, leaving the humans writhing on the ground. Minutes later, they were safe, or as safe as fugitives could be. The pod flew through hidden transit tunnels between sections of the vast station, heading toward what's called an untraceable cloister chamber, off-grid ancient tech the humans couldn't track. Inside the dim cockpit, Elias stared at her. "You saved me." She gave a small nod, but her face was unreadable. "You knew all of this," he said. "You knew I wasn't fully human, that I was connected to you." "I suspected," she said. "I only confirmed it after the ritual." "Why didn't you tell me?" "I needed you to see it for yourself," she said, gently. "Truth without experience is just noise." Elias leaned back, rubbing his temples. "So what now? Earth wants me dead. Terrasec thinks I'm alien property, and I'm married to a woman I've never dated, who lives in my head." Silari almost smiled. "You are not my property, Elias. You are my choice." They arrived at the cloister. The space was vast, circular, and humming with energy, older than either of them could comprehend. Giant monoliths lined the walls, glowing softly. In the center, a massive sphere levitated a memory core, Solari explained, containing histories lost to both Xyrathi and human records. Elias approached. "The sphere. What's in there?" "Answers. About us. About everything." She placed her hand on the surface. The sphere lit up. Visions flashed, ancient wars, hybrid bloodlines, attempts at peace and a prophecy, encoded in energy, of a union that would link the minds of two species, binding empathy to logic, war to peace. The face of the chosen was obscured, but familiar Salari turned to Elias. This is what they fear, that the bond between us isn't just emotional or cultural, it's evolutionary. You think we're some kind of bridge? I don't think, she said. I know. Elias stared into the sphere. He saw war, fire, and then two hands reaching out. One human, one XYRATHI. And he knew. The bond wasn't the end of something, it was the beginning. The human saboteurs. The cloister chamber pulsed with eerie silence after the vision ended. Elias stood trembling, breath shallow, as the final flickers of light faded from the floating memory sphere. It had shown him too much. Not just glimpses of war and unity, but choices, possible futures, branching like veins through time. And at the center of every version, peace or destruction, stood two figures, him and Salari. I saw Earth burn, he whispered, and the Zyrathi with it. Salari said. She stood at his side, her eyes reflecting the swirling glyphs, still dancing across the monoliths. Unless something changes. He turned to her. Why me? Why not one of your own? Why not a real diplomat, or a general, or someone who signed up for this? Because only someone like you could survive the bond. Only someone already touched by the artifact. She paused, her voice low. And because the stream chose you, I just listened. You're saying this was fate? No, I'm saying it was possibility. Elias stepped away, heart pounding. The weight of it all pressed against his chest like gravity turned hostile. Earth thought he was compromised. Zyrathi considered him bound. Terrasek had just tried to kill him, and now a prophecy said he had the power to unite two civilizations or watch them fall. He wasn't ready for any of it. Suddenly, the cloister lights dimmed. A sharp alarm from before echoed through the chamber. Salari turned, her voice tight. They've breached the outer corridor. Elias froze. Again, they found us. How? Salari's expression darkened. Someone gave them our location. Footsteps thundered overhead. Elias and Salari dashed down a curved tunnel. Behind the chamber, the air turned colder, the walls rougher. This wasn't part of the main station. It was old, predating most of Zyrathi's known technology. A voice buzzed through a static-riddled speaker, deep, angry, familiar. Elias Vance, this is Agent Reese Kellen of Terrasek. You are to surrender immediately. No more hiding. No more alien games. Elias slammed his fist into the wall. How do they keep finding us? They must have hacked one of the psychic conduits, Salari muttered. Or, someone close to you betrayed us. Elias stopped. You mean someone on Earth? No. She met his gaze. Someone in orbit. A human aboard this station. They emerged into a secondary control hub, dark, low-ceilinged, covered in dust and disuse. Salari activated a floating control crystal and brought up a feed of the attackers. 3 Terrasek agents in full tactical armor advanced through the cloister's broken doors. But behind them, Elias froze. That's Captain Anders, he said. He was one of my commanding officers during ambassador training. The man on the screen had aged since Elias last saw him, but the voice was unmistakable, steady, authoritative, bitter. Anders wasn't just here as backup, he was leading them in the hidden chamber. Salari whispered, he's the one who ordered the termination protocol. Elias felt cold. I trusted him. He wrote my final evaluations. He said I was the kind of person Earth needed to rebuild diplomacy. Salari's eyes didn't blink. To them, you're no longer diplomatic material. You're an infected variable. The command center's door began to hum, overloaded with pressure from the outside. Salari grabbed Ilias's hand. We can't fight them, but we can show them what we've seen. Are you out of your mind? They're about to breach this door with plasma rifles. She turned him toward a recessed platform behind the consoles. This station has an emotional projection chamber. You saw a memory sphere. This is stronger. This lets others feel what we feel. If they experience our bond, what we've seen, they might hesitate. Elias stared at the device. You want to psychically broadcast our lives into their minds? No, she said. Just one moment. The truth. The door exploded inward. Smoke. Flashlights. Yelling. Elias stood tall at the platform, palm pressed to the projection crystal. Salari, Beside him, a beam of light surged upward, piercing into the air like a lighthouse in a psychic storm. Memory pulse initiated. The intruders collapsed to their knees, and suddenly, they were no longer in the corridor. They were in memory, Antarctica, a boy, snow falling, touching the artifact. Then, Salari's memory, a girl, on a battlefield, screaming as her mentor was vaporized. Then a vision shared of the cloister burning, of Earth's cities falling from orbit, of a baby human and Zyrith in a garden under two suns. Each memory layered, visceral, not just images. Feelings. Hope, loss, grief, unity. And then stillness. The lights faded. Anders gasped as he rose, his face pale. He looked at Elias with something strange in his eyes. Not pity, not rage. Fear. You linked with her. Elias nodded. I didn't ask for this, but I understand it now, and you saw it too. You could have been a weapon. Anders snapped. You still might be. Or a bridge, Salari said. What you saw is not a threat, it's a choice. Anders turned to his men. Stand down. One hesitated, but the missions changed. Back in the silence of the aftermath, Elias sat on the cold floor, shaking. His pulse hadn't slowed since the memory burst. Salari knelt beside him. They felt it, she whispered. The real bond, not the propaganda, not the protocol. Us. I don't know if I can keep doing this, Elias admitted. Every time I try to understand what's happening, another part of my life vanishes. Salari took his hand, then build something new with me. He didn't answer. Not yet. But he didn't pull away. Later, Anders spoke to him privately. There's a faction within Terrasec that's more extreme than I realized. They wanted to erase you the moment the ritual started. You weren't supposed to survive that memory chamber. You didn't stop them. I couldn't, but I can now. What changed? Anders looked at him. I felt her grief, her love for your people. It wasn't fake. It wasn't political. It was ... human. Before parting, Anders handed Elias a small encrypted module. This has all data on the artifact you touched as a child. Files classified even beyond my level. There's more going on here, Elias. Someone on Earth knew this bond was coming years ago. They just didn't think it would be with you. Elias stared at the module. So what do I do now? Anders shrugged. Figure out what you are, then decide what you're willing to become. That night, Elias sat alone, turning the crystal over in his hands, the memory sphere, the encrypted Earth module, the visions, Salari's voice in his mind. He wasn't sure who he was anymore, but he was starting to understand what he was becoming. Between two worlds, the encrypted module sat like a weight in Elias's palm, heavier than any weapon he had ever held. Project, Threshold, Human Zyrith Hybrid Potential, approved for experimental observation. Primary subject, Elias Vance, secondary genetic contributor. Dr. Adrian Vance, deceased his mother. The renowned the woman who had led the 2117 excavation of the Antarctic artifact, the same artifact that had nearly killed him as a child. She'd said it was an accident, a miscalculation, but now, she knew, she'd known everything, and Elias had been under observation for most of his life. Salari sat silently across from him in the quiet chamber. Her eyes locked on his as he recited every word on the screen aloud. You were part of this, he said flatly, voice shaking. She shook her head. Not in the way you think. You didn't know they were watching me. I knew you had been touched, but I didn't know why, or how deeply your people were involved. I believed the bond was chance, destiny even. She paused. But it seems it was designed. Elias stood and paced, hands clenched. So I'm a lab rat. A hybrid experiment created by two species to play peacekeeper if things go sideways. No, Salari said gently, you're not an experiment. You're a result of what happens when two civilizations stop fearing one another long enough to create something new. Elias turned to her, eyes wide. They bred me like a failsafe. I wasn't supposed to feel anything, and yet you do, she whispered. He looked away. Later that day, they left the station, with Anders and Terrasec temporarily neutralized and Earth Command, under diplomatic pressure from the Zyrith to honor the ritual accord. Elias and Salari were granted safe passage to a forgotten moon, Sirian 3, once a neutral site used in early contact missions, now abandoned, remote, unmonitored, a place where no one could hear humanity or Zyrith, politics clawing at the door, and maybe a place where Elias could breathe. Sirian 3 was cold, with a pale green sky, and spires of black glass stone rising from frozen ground. It was beautiful in a lonely, ruined way. The shelter Salary activated was minimal alien tech embedded in the natural rock, camouflaged, protected by memory shielding. I used to come here to meditate before the visions, she said, removing her gloves and letting her hands hover above a glowing spring. It's a convergence zone. Of what? Thought, energy, time. Elias didn't ask what that meant. Not yet. Days passed quietly. For the first time since the ritual, Elias and Salari weren't running. No guards, no weapons, just two people linked, bonded, and uncertain. They spent the evenings around a heat crystal, watching the strange moons rise and fall. Do you believe it? Elias asked one night. Salari glanced at him. Believe what? The prophecy, that our bond could unite two species, or destroy them. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I believe that fear creates prophecy, but trust creates possibility. We're standing on a knife's edge between both. Elias nodded. What if I fall? Then, I catch you. One night, as they slept beside the warmth of the crystal flame, Elias dreamed. But this time, it wasn't Salari's dream. It was his. He stood in front of Earth's council chambers. The chamber was on fire. Civilians screamed. The sky above fractured, revealing Xyrothi warships descending, some bearing peace flags, others charging weapons. And in the middle of it all was a child, small, with glowing silver eyes and dark human hair, standing calmly, smiling. Elias reached out. The child whispered, "You are the bridge, not the destination." Then everything went white. He woke gasping, sweat freezing on his skin. Salary was already awake, eyes wide. "You saw it too," she said. "You saw my dream." She nodded slowly. "I think it wasn't yours alone. It came from the stream." Elias sat up. "That child, that was us." She looked away. "Not exactly. What do you mean?" Salari turned to him, her voice tight. "Elias, the hybrid the prophecy speaks of isn't a baby. It's not biology. It's a melding, a permanent psychic union between two minds, a merging of empathy, memory, identity. If it's completed, you and I would no longer be two." Elias stared. "You mean like fusion?" "Yes. Shared thought, shared emotion. You would know what I know, feel what I feel, lose the walls of self." His heart pounded. "That's not marriage," he said. "That's obliteration." Salari's expression didn't change. "It's transcendence. The first step toward evolving into something beyond war." He stood and backed away. No, that's not what I agreed to." "You didn't agree," she said quietly. "You were chosen, just like I was." The next morning, he stood at the edge of the ridge, looking out at the barren plains of Sirian 3. Wind tore at his coat, but he didn't feel cold anymore. He wasn't sure what he felt. He remembered laughter as a child, snow, earth, then remembered waking in the station after the ritual, skin glowing, mind screaming. Now he had silence, and it was worse. Saelar. I appeared beside him. "You're afraid?" "Yes, I am too." Elias looked at her. "Then why are you willing to lose yourself?" She paused. "Because I've already lost everything else." Later that night, while Elias sat alone, turning the memory crystal over in his hands, a soft chime sounded from the CUM relay, a signal encrypted, faint, human-origin. He activated it. A hologram flickered into view. Anders, scarred, blood on his face static in the feed. "Elias, they know. Earth Command. They never lost contact. They monitored the whole ritual and let it happen. You were always a test. But now they want you terminated. You're a threat to every balance they've kept in place. You have one option. Finish the bond. Complete the fusion. Become what they fear and then make them listen." The signal cut out. Elias stared at the empty air. He ran to Salari, who was meditating near the spring. They knew. All of it. Since the beginning. Earth Command. My mother. The artifact. They were testing how far I'd go. Salari opened her eyes. "And how far will you?" Elias clenched his jaw. "If I finish this bond, there's no going back." "No," she said softly. "There isn't." He looked at her. "And you're ready to lose yourself in me." She stepped forward. "Only because I already see myself in you." He took her hand. And in that moment, no words, just breath and unity. The fusion protocol, the fusion chamber beneath. Sirian 3 was nothing like Elias expected. It was ancient, so ancient it predated even Zyrathi architecture. The walls were carved from obsidian, veined with pale silver light, forming spirals that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. No consoles, no control panels, just a glowing pool at the center, suspended above the ground, hovering in defiance of gravity. Above it, an arc of crystal hummed with unreadable glyphs. It wasn't built for humans or XYRATHI. It was built for something between. And now, Elias stood at its threshold with Silari, hand in hand. The silence between them was heavy not of fear, but of acceptance. Once we begin, Silari said, there's no halfway, no return to the way we were. I know, we may not remain. Too. I know that too. She turned to him. Then why are you still afraid? He gave a faint smile. Because I was raised human. We're good at being afraid of what we don't understand, and you understand this. He looked at her with something deeper than words. I understand you. They stepped forward. The moment their feet touched the edge of the pool, the air became thicker, not heavier, denser, like thought itself had grown weight. The fusion process didn't require machines. It required consent and trust. They stepped into the light. At first, nothing happened. Then a fracture in the air, in the mind, in everything. Elias blinked. He was floating again, but not alone. Memories, hers, theirs rushed through him, like a supernova. Childhood laughter, an alien battlefield, a mother's lullaby, a mentor's death, the cold blue of the ritual chamber, the warmth of Salari's hand in his, the horror of being hunted, the wonder of being seen. His consciousness twisted, merged, burned, and rebuilt. No longer a passenger, he was a co-pilot of something new. A third mind, not Elias or Salari, but the bridge. They stood in a memory together at the council tower, but the people staring weren't real, just echoes. I feel everything, Elias said aloud, all of it. I do too. Salari's voice echoed in his head and heart. You are not alone. They looked down at their hands merged in light, flesh shimmering between human and Zyrathi, and then a voice, not from either of them, from the chamber itself. Fusion acknowledged, protocol complete, emergent consciousness stabilized. The chamber pulsed once, then collapsed, not violently, like a cocoon opening. They awoke in the ruins, but they weren't just two people anymore. Their thoughts moved in harmony, like a duet. They could hear each other without speaking. They didn't need translation. Salari spoke aloud, only to test her voice. Elias, I'm here, he said, and they both smiled. Elsewhere, Earth. Council chambers lit up with warnings. Fusion protocol has been completed. Subject Vance has initiated full psychic convergence. Temporal echoes, detected signal distortion spreading. The head of Earth Commander woman Elias had only ever seen once. At a distance, stood in front of the council screen, face pale. They did it, she whispered. They actually did it. Another officer leaned in. Do we, respond? The chairwoman hesitated, then nodded. Get me the Zyrathi high speaker, now. Aboard the Zyrathi flagship orbiting Earth, the Grand Speaker received the message the same moment. The vessel's navigators froze as the signal from Sirian 3 transmitted in ancient Zyrathi glyphs. The Union has awakened. A silence followed. Not dread, not confusion, reverence, back. On Sirian 3, Ilias and Salari walked side by side through the cold plains. But now, every step felt different. The air bent around them. The wind moved with them. I can feel the stream even now, Elias whispered. Even awake. It's always been there, Salari said. But now, it listens. They stopped at the edge of a cliff, and from beneath the clouds, a new ship emerged. Not human. Not XYRATHI. Something else. A hybrid vessel grown, not built. Black stone and living light. Silent as a prayer. The chamber had awakened it. It's calling to us. Elias said. Salari nodded. It belongs to us. Aboard the vessel, the interior responded not to voice or command, but intent. Their presence gave it purpose. Memories, embedded in the walls, revealed that long ago, this craft was meant to carry a merged emissary to both worlds. But the first attempt had failed centuries too early, before either species was ready. Now, the ship hummed to life, responding to the completed bond. Elias reached out and touched the core. Suddenly, a live channel opened. Earth Command. The display flickered to life. A dozen high-ranking officials, staring in silence. Elias didn't flinch. "This is Elias Vance. I'm not what I was, but I'm still human, and I still care about Earth." He paused, feeling Salari beside him. "But I also understand something now. We were never meant to live apart. The artifact, the visions, the fusion, this wasn't conquest. It was preparation." One official leaned forward. "You are a security risk. You could infect billions with Xyrathi thought forms, telepathic override, cultural collapse. You fear what you don't control." Salari said. "You fear change," Elias added. The Earth chairwoman stepped forward. "What do you want?" Elias and Salari spoke together, one voice, dual tones. "Let us speak to both sides. Let us show them." 1 week later, the first joint assembly convened aboard a newly designated neutral vessel between Earth and Xyrathi orbit. It wasn't a courtroom. It wasn't a battlefield. It was a beginning. Elias and Salari stood at the center of the gathering. They didn't argue. They didn't beg. They projected the chamber, filled with truth, memories, visions, the bond, the danger, the hope. Tears were shed. Guards lowered their weapons. A Xyrathi elder and a human scientist held hands. And slowly, quietly, the tide turned. Months passed, then years, and from the chaos of a forced union came something unthinkable: understanding. Elias and Salari didn't return to politics. They returned to Seer, Ion-3. They helped build the first bridge, academy where human and Xyrathi children would one day learn to think together. And deep in the night, beneath 2 moons, they would sit and watch the stars, not as emissaries, not as symbols, but as one final line of the story. And though the world would remember Elias Vance as the human who married an alien queen, the truth was far stranger. He didn't just marry her, he became her, as she became him, and together, they became something new. The end.